Hello and welcome friends. In this particular module, I wish to discuss about introduction to air pollution and control. We'll discuss about the basic spheres of the environment, composition of the atmosphere, background of the air pollution, basic assumptions in the control of air pollution problem, definition of air pollution, impact of anthropogenic activities on the atmosphere, and broad categories of air pollution. As you learn the content, you'll be able to explain basic spheres and composition of the atmosphere, state background and assumptions in the control of air pollution problem, and discuss impacts of anthropogenic activities on the atmosphere in the light of definition of air pollution. The environment, the natural world that we live in, is very complex. It comprises of physical, chemical, as well as certain biotic factors which are deeply interacting continuously with each other. Technically, this environment comprises of lithosphere, which deals with soil, land, and rock. Secondly, it deals with hydrosphere, which is associated with the water, atmosphere, which deals with air, and biosphere, which deals with life. All these spheres are very closely associated with each other. If we consider this biosphere, it receives the sunlight and gases from the atmosphere. It collects the water from the hydrosphere and living medium from this geosphere. As we see in this particular sketch, all these particular spheres are very closely associated with each other. Hence, if there is any change that is associated with any of the spheres, it will be reflecting in the adverse manner on all other spheres. As we consider these particular spheres, which are dealing with this particular air, water, land, as well as these particular biotic life in general, if at all there is no interaction, the life which is occurring in this particular biosphere will simply cease. Let's get introduced with certain basic definitions. If we consider a certain region, then as we speak about the weather of that particular region, it is a state of the atmosphere for that particular region. It is a kind of local phenomenon. Whereas air is general name for the mixture of the gases that makes up the Earth's atmosphere. This Earth's atmosphere is written by Earth's gravity, and it is surrounding the planet Earth, forming its planetary atmosphere. If we consider this air, it does not have any specific quality. It is clean, transparent, does not have any scent. As compared to this weather, the climate is long-term average of the weather. So typically, if we consider the whether for a particular region over the 30 years, it will define the climate of that particular region. As we are more associated with the air, which is in turn making up this particular atmosphere, in the context of our course, that is air pollution and control, let's try to understand exactly how this atmosphere is composed of. As you see in this sketch, the atmosphere mainly comprises of the gases, that too with the major contribution of the nitrogen having 78% of the extent, whereas the second component is oxygen, which is roughly 21%. Also, here there is a argon 0.9% approximately, in addition to the various trace gases that are amounting some 0.04%. As we consider the presence of the trace gases, here there are a variety of the gases like hydrogen, krypton, methane, helium, neon that are comprising with the figures that are given here, whereas the carbon dioxide is present with 0.04% approximately. Our main interest is to discuss the various issues related with the air pollution. So let's try to understand the background of the problem. The basic problem that is on the background of the air pollution is increasing population. So, as on today, if we think of the population, the world population is 8 billion with 1.1% positive annual change in last 5 years. So, this particular population is ever demanding. It has its living standard very high, and accordingly, if we consider with the living styles and the requirements these particular living component has, is more related with the emission of the pollutants, which are intensified as well as that are causing the concentration of the pollutants in localized area. Also, this particular population has got requirement of many products in order to meet with their living style. So accordingly, in order to have these particular products manufactured, there is a huge demand of the energy. So, in order to generate this particular energy, various fossil fuels like oil, coal, gasoline and such are burned. So, as they are burned, they are causing the emissions. Hence, this factor associated with the emissions is mainly related with establishing the control on the sources of the energy. The good part is nowadays the people are more aware of their deeds, and accordingly they have become concerned with the various environmental issues. As we are interested in giving certain solutions related with the problem of the air pollution, let's try to understand what are the various basic assumptions for the general control of this air pollution problem. There are 4 basic assumptions. The first assumption is The air is in the public domain. This air pollution is concerned with the polluter as well as sufferer. There is not any single ownership for this particular air. Also, we being the people who are interested in enjoying the all facets of the life, we are bound to create certain pollution. Hence, this air pollution is an inevitable concomitant of the modern life. Hence, there is a conflict between economic as well as biologic causes. If we wish to establish the control on this particular air pollution, we have to have certain scientific knowledge in order to shape the public policy. However, the knowledge that we have is sufficient but far from complete. That is, say, if we consider the example of the climate change, the pollutant which was emitted years back is reflecting on the change that we are experiencing today. So, we have the knowledge, but that knowledge is not complete. Hence, sometimes we have to think logically in order to establish the control on this particular air pollution problem. There are many techniques which are associated with the establishing the control on the air pollution and the control of emissions of the pollutant. However, it is quite probable that as we try to establish control on the emission of certain pollutant, the problem associated with the air pollution may get transformed into water pollution. Hence, the generation of the wastewater as well as even it may enter into the generation of the solid waste. Hence, the methods of reducing must not increase the pollution in other sectors of the environment is also the one of the basic assumptions in order to establish the general control on the air pollution. After having this particular discussion, the broad area associated with the air pollution should have been clear to you. Hence, now we are in a position to understand how we can define the air pollution. So, air pollution could be defined as the presence in the air. We are restricting our scope for the outdoor atmosphere of one or more pollutants or the combinations thereof in such a quantities and for such a durations which could be or which tend to be injurious to the human, animal or plant life or property or which unreasonably interferes with the comfortable enjoyment of the life or property or conduct of the business. This particular definition, as we compare with the composition of the atmosphere, the meaning would be very clear for basic understanding. That whatever the combination of nitrogen, oxygen, trace gases that we considered, anything other than that would be causing the pollution of the atmosphere. If we try to understand the impact of worsening air pollution, there are many. Say, just to get The idea, as far as health is concerned, the air pollution is linked to 7 million premature deaths worldwide per year. There are air pollutants which are affecting the climate as a whole, and the change associated with that is very harmful. The effect of the air pollution is also associated with the global crop yields. There is a considerable reduction as far as these wheat, soya, and maize like crops. The pollutants, as they are emitted, would be causing the rainfall, it would be changing the rainfall patterns. Also, they would be getting absorbed into the water bodies, and hence it would considerably interfere with that correspondent ecology. As there is a presence of the heads, as there is a presence of the particulate in the atmosphere, it will cause the reflection as well as change the pattern of the transmission, and hence there is a reduction in the solar yields as much as 25%. If we try to have the change that is made by our living, it is hardly 0.01% as far as the ambient atmosphere is concerned. However, even such a small change has caused significant adverse effects on the climate, ecosystem, as well as various species that are living on the planet of the earth. Also, many phenomena such as acid rains, ozone depletion, greenhouse effect, and photochemical smog are the immediate adverse effects, as well as the anthropogenic activities are concerned. As the pollutants are generated both from natural as well as man-made activities in the form of methane, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, VOC, sulfate, etc. They are traveling through the atmosphere and they are getting interacted with each other in order to give rise to different kind of the pollutants. So just for example, you can see here that this particular ozone is getting produced at the ground level. The ozone that is getting produced at the ground level being the greenhouse gas, and as has some inherent characteristics which are hampering all the biotic factors, is not acceptable. Also, as these particular pollutants are entering in the upper atmosphere, they are causing the destruction of the ozone. In turn, the solar radiations which are reaching this particular Earth's surface would be with the presence of the UV rays, and that UV rays would unreasonably interfere with the living of all these particular factors. Hence, as we are trying to get introduced with these adverse effects, some of the observations that are made globally can be understood here. The greenhouse gases concentrations are at highest levels in the span of 2 million years. As a result, the Earth is 1.1 degree centigrade warmer than it was in the late 1800s. Also, if we consider the kind of the terrain, it is quite probable that the global temperature may rise by 4.4 degrees centigrade by the end of the centuries. However, many mitigation measures are being taken, many national treaties are signed, there are changes made in the techniques, the material being used, and also the emissions. Hence, the trend which is showing to have such a huge temperature rise may not occur. During the span of 1880 to 1980, the temperature rise is of 0.07 degrees centigrade. Since 1981, it is increasing at a rate of 0.2 degrees centigrade per decade. According to the certain studies that are made by International Panel on the Climate Change, it is quite probable that tens of the millions of the more people are likely to face chronic hunger by 2050 and 130 million more could experience the extreme poverty. In 2050, there is a threat of having the risk from the floods because of daily increase in the sea storm surges. Also, some 350 million more people living in the urban areas will be exposed to the water scarcity from the severe droughts. Some 150 to 200 species of the plant, insects, birds, and mammal become extinct every 24 hours. The climate change would cost the global economy up to 200 billions US dollars by 2050. In line with these particular global observations, it is worthwhile to understand the changing patterns in India. The surface air temperature over India has risen by about zero point 0.7 degrees centigrade during 1901 to 2018, which is accompanied with increase in the atmospheric moisture content. The sea surface temperature is increased by 1 degree centigrade during 1951 to 2015. The rise in the frequency of the localized heavy rainfall events, drought and flood occurrences, and increase in the intensity of the tropical cyclones in the last few decades. Also, the trends in the sea level rise are estimated to be 1.3 millimeters per year along the Indian coasts during the last 40 to 50 years. By 2000, that rate had increased to about 3.2 millimeter per year, and rate in 2016 was estimated at 3.4 millimeter per year. So, if we consider that particular rising trend of the sea level, it is quite probable, according to the studies, as they predict, the cities such as Kandla, Okha, Bhavnagar, Mumbai, Goa, Mangalore, Cochin, Paradip could be underwater by at least depth of 0.75 to 1 meter by 2050. The total air pollution can be brought under four categories. As we consider the total people that are exposed to the air pollution phenomena, it can be categorized broadly under these two classes. One related with the ambient atmosphere, which again could be considered in terms of indoor environment as well as outdoor environment. So, this indoor environment could be associated with the people who are staying, who are living at that particular residences, as well as that could be certain their workplaces. Also, that could be the ambient air pollution. So, as we consider these particular categories, as far as ambient air pollution is concerned, it is complex phenomenon. It is associated with the social, economic, as well as health effects. As we consider this particular indoor air pollution, there are no federal regulations as it is associated with the residences or the workplaces or the places like schools, offices, and such things. There is a need to have support from the local authorities in order to establish or the control of the pollution. There are many agencies which are establishing the control on the occupational safety as well as associated health, and these are giving certain norms in order to maintain the required hygienic conditions over that particular workplaces. However, as we consider this particular say personal exposure, as we consider the example of these particular say smokers or non-smokers which are exposed at the various levels, the control needs to be established on their own through the citizens who are living in that region. So, whatever the discussion that we tried to have is very broad, and it is in order to have the platform created in order to understand various air pollution phenomena in depth. As we move ahead, you will be able to understand what are the meanings associated with each of the terms that we try to understand in this particular lecture. So, thank you for your attention. As we move ahead, we'll discuss about the air pollutants, their sources and types. So, bye till then. I wish you very happy learning. Thank you.